how's Rocky doing? Any luck finding Lady Rock?
How is Rocky doing in any luck finding Lady Rock?
I think Rocky is living his best life single right now. He has a dog, so he's not lonely, but he's spending his evenings going out, you know? But Rocky's doing good. He's got his little house up here. This is Rocky. And this is his dog.
I didn't know that was a thing.
You haven't seen his dog?
Are you just gonna keep adding more rocks?
Yes, I am. This is gonna get heavier and heavier and eventually fall.
Miguel asks, how do you price your knives and why are they so expensive?
Oh, that's a complex question. When I first started, it would be basing it off of like how much time went into it, how much other people were selling, because I wanted to be fairly comparable when I was starting, materials, and how much I suffered. Now it's like basically it's just been a gradual progression of like my current price, and I'm increasing as demand and complexity goes up. And a lot of it has to do with like living costs. I have to pay you and myself, and that's like baseline. That's going to be a minimum cost right there, based off how much time it takes to make a knife, how many we're making in a week, and just how much it costs to live.
In that sense, it's almost necessary for them to be kind of expensive because
because we're making not that many per week,
right?
And if I'm paying both of us at the same time, we have to charge a certain amount. That's just the way it is.
Favorite knife made by someone else?
Oh, good question. My favorite knife made by another maker. When I first started making knives, I saved like thousands of photos as inspiration, but there was always one knife that stuck out to me. It was this not old, but like this dagger made by somebody that I didn't know, and I couldn't find anything about them online. Like I had their name, I knew they were an ABS mastersmith, but there was like nothing out there. And since then, it's still been my favorite favorite knife ever. It's like simple, it's not too flashy, it's just like very minimal, but like really nice. And I think it was earlier this year, I found out more about the maker of the knife. So the maker is Jim Jackson, a former ABS mastersmith who has now retired, and he is the personal armor maker of Her Majesty the Queen. So that is like the craziest thing ever, that my like biggest inspiration for a knife has lived up to that like expectation like throughout the years, because I was like, man, I don't know who this guy is. Like, I don't know if this knife is like really that good, or I don't know. But yeah, I still love that knife, and it's a cool story.
I was wondering how you order a custom knife. My chef's birthday is coming up. I really like that chef.
Unfortunately, my orders are closed, and I don't really do orders anymore. And that's not to say that it's always going to be like that. I mean, we'll keep making more and more. We'll get more efficient, and hopefully we'll have more stuff available to actually get.
Yeah.
And then things might change, like our style of business might change in the future. So I just say keep up to date on how things are going, and something might pop up. The best way to keep track is either through my Instagram or my newsletter. My newsletter is more official, so like any big announcements I'm going to be doing through that. It's like if I go through any big changes, if I've got a knife for sale, if I've got some crazy project coming up, then that's the way I'll announce it. And I'll do it through Instagram too, but that's harder to keep track of because of everything else.
How do you prevent overheating the blade while grinding after cutting?
The best way to prevent overheating after heat treating while you're grinding is use fresh abrasives. So I don't have variable speed on my grinder. It's running blazing fast the whole entire time. I mitigate heat by using coarse grits whenever I can, so I go as far as I can with that. So 36 grit, make sure it's actually fresh. So the instant you start using dull abrasives, there's more surface area actually in contact with the blade at a time. It's creating a lot more heat. So fresh abrasives, faster passes and less pressure as you get closer to the edge. So if I'm grinding a blade and I'm grinding like the bottom, like up towards the spine, there's way more mass there, so I can focus more pressure for longer down here. When I'm grinding towards the edge, where there's less mass, especially towards the tip, where I have to be really careful, I'm doing a much faster pass, and I'm going lighter pressure, and I'm just being more aware of like the heat as I'm going. Teflon. The reason why it's Teflon is because lower friction and higher melting temperature. It's kind of a fun story. So I got into knife making I got the interest in 2010, and it was at a point in my life where I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. And I was bouncing between like music, biology, like chiropractics, theoretical physics, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. It was definitely not any of those, like definitely not physics. And I was at a friend's house, and the deal was I got free rent as long as I cooked dinner. I was like, fuck yeah, let's do that. And the first night there, I was making curry, and I had all these onions to dice. I look in his knife drawer, and he has a small little shitty serrated knife, and I had to dice all of those by sawing the onions open. And I was crying and just being like, why? So I learned to sharpen knives from YouTube. And it kind of went from there. I saw people making knives in like Japan and stuff. I was like this is really cool. Like I could learn how to do that, and how hard could it be? So then I just jumped into it. Found a metalwork, I found like a class at the community college, and it was basically like an open workshop for metal, and that's where I started making knives. So basically, went from not knowing what I wanted to do, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Let's just jump into it. And that was it.
What supplier do you use for your steel?
My steel supplier is New Jersey Steel Baron.
What disc sander do you use?
The disc sander I use is a KMG disc mounted on some pillow blocks hooked up to a motor. So it could just be whatever as long as it's a disc. It doesn't have to be a KMG disc. That's just what I use.
What's the variable speed thing?
Oh, the disc is on a variable speed, and it's just a VFD, hook it up to the motor. It can turn clockwise, counterclockwise, and change the speed, and that's really important.
So, what advice do you have for starting out?
What advice do I have for new makers and starting out? Well, first, you gotta have a workspace of some sort. If you're in an apartment, that makes it a lot more tricky, but not impossible. So, most important piece of advice I have, keep things simple. So don't make a chef's knife to start out with. Like, don't be an idiot like me. Make a small knife so that you can do most of the shaping with a file beforehand, before heat treating. You can heat treat it with simple ways. So you can send it out to somebody to heat treat. You can use a torch and try your best. I'd suggest sending it out. And then you can do a lot of the hand shaping on a smaller scale in a smaller space.
Community college really helped you out.
It did. If you can find a space, like there's a lot of community spaces in different cities and stuff, that'll help a lot. But if you don't have one, like make sure you've got pretty decent lighting, a workspace. Be aware of fire hazards. Be aware of like chemical and dust hazards too. So just be really aware of safety. Like that's really important. And then, like I said, keep things simple.
And something that you're really, as a person, good at is when you're starting out doing something, don't let your ego stop you from learning it. And Don is really good at this, if he's good at anything. Yes, because when someone who's good at the thing tells you that there's something that you need to do, you don't say, oh, well, that's not important. You are very good at, like, I want to learn how to do this. I'm going to do it the way that this person says, and I'm not going to deviate from the way that person says. And I think that has helped you more than you know at a lot of the skills you've developed.
Huh, I didn't even, realize.
If you think you know something, you might not. Just keep your mind open to the information available and try and follow it as closely as possible, and you'll learn a lot faster if you're not constantly making excuses for, well, I don't need that, or I don't need to do it that way. What if I just did it this way? It'd be easier. Just do it the way they do it. They know what they know, and they're successful because of the way they do it.
On that note, there's a lot of bullshit out there, absolute horsecock shit, and it's gonna be hard to sift through information. So,
like, our channel will mislead you.
it might.
Our channel is wrong 55% of the time. I'll let you figure out where that 55% is.
What was I saying?
I would, for advice, give them a maker that they could look at and say, all right, like, who has information online or has a structure that's easy to follow, that you could say, this person knows what they're doing. If you just follow what they say, you'll be decent, and then you can start moving on from there.
Yes.
Off the top of my head, Kyle Royer has a great channel with a lot of builds. He's not pretty advanced. He's extremely advanced, but you can take a lot of concepts from him and a lot of his like process into, like your own thing. He's got some videos on like kind of beginner making too. A good Facebook group is Knife Makers Whiteboard. That is a great group where they tolerate zero bullshit and it's all about learning. So like, if they're gonna call you out on your shit, like, you should probably consider taking their advice.
Another broader concept that I learned, especially from artists, and Don's included, is that failure is the goal. So if you can recontextualize failure as not the antithesis of your goal, but a stepping stone toward it, then you'll be majorly set up for success in anything you do. If you can prioritize, don't seek to fail, but use your failures as a stepping stone toward your inevitable goal.
That's good advice. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, because of all the painters I watch, these people have forgotten to feel bad about failure, and that's one of their biggest strengths, because every failure is an education. And if you're not feeling sorry for yourself and instead you're paying attention to why you failed, it's just more layers, and pretty soon you'll be somewhere. I can't follow this advice because I am a narcissist, but maybe you can.
I was just a little bitch. If I was not making knives, what I would be doing? Is that like before I get into knives, or is that like if I was to change my profession now?
Let's assume that you're omniscient, you know all skills. What would you be doing?
I'd be building race cars. I'd be building bespoke V12 Jaguars. That's my other dream goal. But if I didn't stumble into knives, I have literally no idea. No.
Entertaining, some way, somehow.
Like adult entertainment? Oh.
If my cock was bigger.
You can get a knife from any other maker.
Oh shit. Who makes the most expensive knife out there?
Just get something really pricey. I can put my kids through college.
Just get like this historic sword from like a Japanese museum or something. Well, okay, serious current maker. Probably one of my friends. Probably like Mariko Mamasi or Mike Quisenberry or there's a few makers we were thinking about doing trades with, and I was like, that would be really cool too. Yeah, one of my friends.
Okay, where do you get your creative ideas?
I don't know. Where do I get my creative ideas? Most of my ideas are actually iterations off previous knives I've made. So I'll probably like fuck up a handle somehow. I'm like, oh, that shape looks kind of cool for some future knife. And then that would be like how I design something. I also doodle a bunch of shitty drawings over there. If I get some little spark of inspiration, I'll dick around with it for like a few months probably, just tweaking some lines until it finally looks good. So, like, for example, the sci-fi knife, I was just like, I want to make a knife that's like a Gundam or something like that. So I did. And I was just like, well, it's got to have like little winglets and some other random shapes. And like, I didn't even have a finalized design before I started shaping it, so I don't even know. It's just whatever.
So creativity as people perceive it is a myth, in my opinion. And I think one of the best people I've ever heard talk about creativity is a man by the name of Chuck Jones, who is director of all your favorite Looney Tunes cartoons. And he said that you have to read. And the only way that you could come up with something new is if your head is filled with information, and the only way you can get that information is by reading. And I think it's not just reading books. I think it's you have to experience stuff, you have to learn new things, and you have to try and fail a bunch. And all of that will inform what inevitably ends up being a creative output. But creativity, that kind of like the way people think of it, where it just comes out of nowhere, and you know, people like Van Gogh were just born creative. No, he went outside, he lived life, he loved people, he hated people. You know, all of these things informed what was the end result, but none of it was in a vacuum. So creativity doesn't come out of nowhere. Fill your head with shit, and it doesn't have to be just knife making shit. It could be any shit. And it will inform your knife making, or inform whatever else you're doing.
I've got a lot of shit up in here.
His head is chock full of shit. That man right there is full of shit. And I love him. The more information you have, the more you can draw from. And creativity at its base is just a mixture of things that people don't usually see together. Mixture of ideas.
You put into words what I feel, and I've never actually explained it out or even thought about. So, yeah.